They're deep in the community with, really trying to fight against social injustices, and they're really about reforming the criminal justice systems and putting their money where their mouth is.
Welcome to PTG TV. This is your host, Antonio Hicks, aka Escaping the Matrix. In this episode of Real Talk and Conversation, I welcome my special guest, Mr. Michael J. Payton, founder of C-Suite Music and director of the new Murder Inc. story on BET. Welcome onto the show, boss man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, brother. I really appreciate being here, and I'm happy to share my story.
So you got C-Suite Music, but then when I go look at you and I look at your background and stuff, like you're really a content creator and you create a lot of content when it comes to activism and work and stuff. So how did you get started into even doing any of those things to where you are today?
Well, as we was talking offline, I started off as a rapper, right? So when by the time I was 12 years old, I just knew I was going to be the next Jay-Z. So I started off producing my own music, creating my own videos and so on and so forth. And as I got older, got into college, I was still doing music and still making videos and all that. But I started to become interested in documentary filmmaking and taking my skills as the skills I learned with making videos and kind of making these little vignettes about different things that was going on, whether it was a little doc about Jay-Z or it was a doc about Kamala Harris and what she was doing in Oakland. Like these are the things that really kind of piqued my interest in drawing that line between between culture, content, and and activism, for lack of a better term. So from there, I just have always made sure that's in the DNA of what I do. And from making these YouTube videos, I created a documentary about then Senator Kamala Harris when she was just elected, and that kind of caught the attention of a young elected official, Michael Tubbs, who had just newly got elected here in California, in the city of Stockton. He was the youngest and the first Black mayor to ever run his city, and one of the youngest mayors in U.S. history. So that made it to his camp, and I started working with them on creating content for his office and the things that they were doing, they were doing some really progressive things in the city of Stockton around universal basic income and education. So I was able to lend, my skills as a content creator to what they were doing. And it kind of just took on from there. I went on and worked in the California governor's office under Jerry Brown, and then ended up working with now Governor Gavin Newsom on a campaign for the state. So it's just something I've always had in my DNA, going back to my grandmother, who was an activist in Oakland and one of the first people to start a housing union in Oakland back in the 70s. So it's in my DNA, and it's something I'm going to continue to do in my work, whether it's making a hip hop doc for BET or making a feature film. I'm always going to have that in my DNA.
So you switched the art of storytelling and rap to doing storytelling for activism and other people.
Absolutely. I mean, it's always been, again, my family background, my mom was like a very, active person in the city of Oakland. Her mother was very active, in the 70s. And so this, being from Oakland, you just kind of have that kind of mindset. Like it's always like, for lack of a better word, militant. You grow up in very politically aware, and you can't help it. So even as you get into music and you get into the music industry, you start seeing little things that are going on. It's like, wait, that's not right. Like, that's not, why are we pushing this agenda? Why are we pushing that? And you start to kind of think different when you're from, the Bay Area. It's just naturally in our DNA. And so that is just something that, that has always just stuck with me in all the work that I do.
Yeah, because I was going to say you went from rap to politics. So I'm like, that's a huge shift. That's a big shift.
But not really. I don't see it that way. I think hip hop is actually very political, and I don't mean like Chuck D, Public Enemy kind of political, that too. But what I mean, even the idea, and that kind of gets us to where how I got to tell this Murder Inc. story and direct that. But my fascination with hip hop from a young age has always been, of course, the music, and it's fun, and it's all that stuff. But what really struck me is that these, I grew up in poverty. I grew up with a single mom, in poverty, like any other young black man in the inner city. I could have been dead, locked up, or so who God knows what, right? And so when I look at guys like Jay-Z, when I look at guys like Sean Combs, or even Irv Gotti, these are guys who were kids who had an idea. All they had was an idea. They didn't have necessarily the resources. They didn't have the structure. They didn't have Harvard MBAs or anything like that. Hell, they barely had instruments. They didn't have instruments. They didn't, but they had idea. They had a belief. They had this entrepreneurial spirit, that if we look at where Jay-Z is now, right, and how brilliant he is, and you look at Irv Gotti, and when you watch the Murder Inc. story, you'll see that, he started off as when 12, 13 years old on the turntables, right? And he mastered that technology, but he was brilliant enough to know how to master that technology, capitalize off of that, and, ultimately make an enterprise. Now, imagine if Irv Gotti was given the tools that Steve Stout, Steve Stout as well, but Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg were given. Irv Gotti could have easily have been, one of those, and could have built $1 billion tech company, if they were given the same kind of opportunities and chances. So what I really am fascinated with hip hop about is the brilliance of young entrepreneurs taking nothing and making something out of it. I mean, literally thin air. I mean, Jay-Z doesn't even write his words down. His lyrics come from his head, out of thin air. And out of thin air, you can maneuver yourself out of your situation, out of poverty into success, into being able to provide for your family and your community as well. So that, to me, I don't see it as being like, oh, well, there's hip hop and then there's politics. To me, it's all the same. Hip hop is, I think, African Americans. I dare I say it's our oil, if I will. Dare I say it's our way out. It's for a lot of young black folks. It's sports, it's the army, or some kind of form of entertainment. And hip hop in the last 50 years now has been a powerhouse and really lifting so many people out of poverty and giving people, not just music, but we also talk about fashion. We talk about content. We talk about all the things that have come out of this ecosystem we call hip hop. I mean, for context, part of my story is when I went to undergrad, a huge chunk of my tuition was paid for by Jay-Z and his Sean Carter Scholarship Foundation. Put me all through undergrad in college at SF State. So were it not for hip hop.
Speak on that. Because, he did. So a lot of people don't know about what he does when it comes to his community activism work, because he don't put it out on blast.
Right.
So how did you catch wind of the scholarship program and being able to apply for it?
Well, again, I've been, since a young age, I was always a big fan of Jay, and he was always one of the artists that I looked to the most. So every time I would see an article or read, I was reading everything I could about Jay, and I happened to see somewhere, it may have been in a magazine or somewhere I may have read that he had, the Scholarship Foundation. I was like, okay. And I remember when I was time to apply for, scholarships when I was applying for college, that was definitely like one of the first ones I did. And I didn't think that I didn't really know what to expect, because you see these things like, oh, well, maybe, he's probably just serving kids in New York, or who knows, like, I'm just one of maybe a million kids who are applying for this. But sure enough, I received that letter from his mother, Gloria Carter, who actually runs this foundation, and they were able to support me. And they not only do they just give you money, right? Because that's a big part, but they give you support, and they give you opportunities that you probably wouldn't normally have. Now, me, I was in California, so it was kind of harder, with them being based on the East Coast.
Right.
That I wasn't necessarily able to kind of take advantage fully of all the opportunities that they had. But, for so many students, they have internships and apprenticeships, and they connect you with, financial literacy people. And they were really big on not just like giving you some money and, hey, you're on your own. They were really influential, step by step, kind of walking you through and kind of helping to be your guide as you navigate being in college and post-college and all that stuff. And it's one of the great real full circle moments that I have been able to, interview Jay-Z for the Murder Rain documentary as well. And he would later introduce me to his mother, who once I told him that I received a scholarship, and I've been in touch with his mother, Gloria, and we've been talking about ways we can collaborate. So
that's great.
It's amazing, man. And what they do is, it's really incredible. And what they're doing over there, not just with the Scholarship Foundation, but with Team Rock, and they're deep in the community with, really trying to fight against social injustices, and they're really about reforming the criminal justice systems and putting their money where their mouth is. And I'm really just in awe of that model, and hope that other artists, other creatives can build on that model and contribute to take these resources that we have and give it back and really try to help and really try to make change. I mean, they're out there getting laws passed and introduced in different houses all across the state, all across these different states across the country. So that's the power to me of hip hop. That's why I don't see the two as being separate, but they're actually one. Politics and hip hop, economics, they're all linked, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you I like to nerd out about stuff. So if you think about the stories being told, I mean, yeah, they are intertwined together, because they're really telling you what's taking place within the community and how they ended up growing up. And now you can look at it from the face value of it, and you're like, oh, well, they keep rapping about, murder this and that and selling drugs. But I'm like, well, why is it what they have to rap about?
Right.
I'm like, why aren't we doing better within the community itself? Why are you not investing back into the community? Right. And what policies are you pushing out to kind of help them lift up the community so they won't have those stories to tell? They can have a different story to tell.
Yeah, the folks are focused on the symptoms, but not the cause.
Right.
Of the problem, right. And so the fact that all Young Thug or whoever has to rap about is what they see or what their friends are doing or what they grew up in. That's their story. And I think that's also the brilliance that you took, like, just using the analogy, they gave us, they took the pig intestines, right, and gave it to us as scraps, and we took that, we made a delicacy out of it. Not saying that, I don't eat pork, but I'm just saying, like,
they do now though.
right. But the ability of Black folks and folks at the bottom, marginalized folks, to take nothing and build and make something out of it, I think is brilliant. For folks to be able to tell the stories of what's going on in their neighborhoods and paint those pictures, paint those audio, visual movies, if you will, with their lyrics and say, this is what's going on. And, listen, sometimes people go too far and they're over celebrating and they're almost romanticizing it. I don't necessarily condone that. Right. But art is expression. And that, like you said, it is a reflection of what is going on in a lot of these neighborhoods and communities. And I hope that one day we will get to a point where we heal that sickness of violence and over commodification of or over celebration of materialism and this toxic masculinity that tends to permeate in a lot of our communities, that's celebrated in a lot of our communities. I hope that one day that like, again, not looking at the symptom, because why Young Thug and Gunna are rapping about certain things, because that's all they may know, that's all they may see. They're just young kids who are rapping and, other people like it, let's capitalize off this, let's sell it, let's go on tour. That's all. They're just a symptom. They're not the root cause of poverty in America, So I hope that one day we can really get to that, we'll get to that place where we won't have to have people rapping about, shootings and killing, and all that stuff. I mean, I think that day is coming. I think it's coming.
Yeah, we get some more Talib Kweli's and Will, because I know you do a documentary on Will Smith and stuff. Get back to those days again.
Yeah, exactly. And it's nothing wrong. Like people like being fly. People like being fly, and they like being, swagged out, and they like.
And I'm not going to sit here and say I don't listen to it, right? Because I listen to it.
Exactly. It's okay to feel good. Like it's okay to celebrate and sometimes be decadent a little bit. That's what makes us who we are. I think we shouldn't apologize. That's just a unique. That's just an American thing. It's the American way. We shouldn't apologize for that and our way of life in that regard. But at the same time, we shouldn't. We don't have to celebrate. We don't have to celebrate. Degrading women. Something that I strongly condone. One of the reasons we can get into this later, but one of the reasons why I actually fell back from being an artist and making that pivot into more of the film and using this platform, I can actually do some good, because I realize that as a creative, I have power, maybe not the same kind of power that you'll have when you're elected in Congress one day, brother. But as a creative, you're able to make people feel and think and feel a type of way, and I think that is that's an enormous responsibility, and I think at some point when I was younger and as an artist, I kind of was taking advantage of taking that for granted, and I don't want to do that anymore.
That's good. I mean, that's kind of like I said, why I started this platform that I started to bring people awareness to what's taking place within the community, and just to have like the title of the show, Real Talking Conversation about things, because that's the biggest thing that I felt like that we were missing. We were missing honesty. People telling them, what the truth of the matter is, what's going to happen versus what's not going to happen, not sugarcoating any of those things. Because, what do we typically get? What do we complain about, especially when it comes to politics? People come to our doors, they sell us on this snake oil, and then at the end of the day, once they're in office, we never hear from them again. So we do have to use our collective power to start making change within our own community. I was telling somebody the other day, I think we need to get back into the old Black Panther Party.
Yeah. Started in Oakland, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. So, and people say, oh, well, why are you trying to, get something started like a terrorist group? I'm like, it wasn't a terrorist group. I said the Black Panther Party was there to police the community.
Right.
We was making sure people were safe within our own communities. We were making sure households were everybody was treated right within the households. Kids was able to get back and forth to school. Okay. They had everything that they needed with going off to school. We just policed our own communities. And when we were doing that, what was happening? We were thriving.
Right. And the free lunch program started because of the Black Panther Party. Yeah. It's so many things that you have to have strong community pride and strong community, people who are kind of the check on, the authorities that are supposed to be, looking out for us. But, often the case is that people who are police aren't from our neighborhoods.
Right.
They ain't from where we from. They don't look like what we look. They look at sometimes, and I'm not demonizing all police and stuff, but I think sometimes we're looked at as like, well, based on the stereotype, based on what we hear in the music, what we hear in the media, all you guys over here may be this way. And I think there needs to be some kind of there needs to be a check on that. There needs to be a check in some kind of medium ground where people are able to be like, no, that's not what that is. Like, let's have a conversation. Let's come to the table, but we're also going to look out for our people as well. So that's.
But I mean, too, you got to look at who funded this stuff. Because like you just said early on, we didn't have the money. So why was it that it was okay to put funding into our music that meant demonizing us and belittling us and belittling our women and making derogatory statements about them? Why was that so easy to fund as opposed to funding businesses that would actually uplift and help our community?
No, 100%.
And it's like they paint a picture about us.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I think people get really comfortable with their stereotypes. They get very comfortable in what they've been taught and what they want to believe about a certain people, and it's almost like we'll fund that because I want to go through the safari of the Black ghettos in New York, and let's go see what they're doing in the Bronx. Oh, that's what they're doing. They're hanging out. What's the old song, people pissing in the stairs. Oh, they're pissing in the stairs. How do they live like that? So it becomes entertainment for people who are not from these communities, and it's like, oh yeah, I'll pay money to go see that movie, and so of course it's a commodity. It becomes a big popular thing because people want to kind of live vicariously through that, but it's unfortunate because there is money out there. There are people who are willing to put dollars into the Black community, but just not in the way that we want to do. But now that, again, the Black dollar has gotten stronger, we have more we definitely have more Black billionaires and Black millionaires than we had, back when the Panther Party was popping, right? So let's take those resources, then let's do what LeBron is doing and build a school like in Akron. And people, these guys aren't doing enough. But LeBron got a school in Akron. Puff got a school and a couple of charter schools in Harlem. Jay has his scholarship foundation. I think who was it? Was it Killer Mike or is it Killer Mike is down there doing something? T.I. is down there in Atlanta about things developments. If I'm not.
Yeah, he is. He just bought something. Yeah.
Yeah, so like you've seen it little by little. Of course, it's not going to get the same kind of attention as excuse the plane overhead, but that won't get the same attention. But we need to do it,
Right. So take us through you actually doing the biography, the unofficial biography for Irv Gotti, to him noticing that, and now because now we shifting over into your content creation, into what you're doing to bring awareness of what's going on, and then you just helping out, putting highlight on some of these artists.
Yeah. No. Well, again, so I started. I actually started my company, C-Suite Music, 6 years ago. Yesterday, the day that the video that the doc actually got released. But I started with the intent of just what we're talking about, using the pull and the appeal of music, of hip hop, right? And elevating, using that storytelling capability of hip hop culture and elevating other stories and elevating, stories that people may not know and may not have heard of and may not be fully aware of the intricacies of them, right? So again, I told you I did an unauthorized documentary on Jay-Z at one point. I did an unauthorized documentary about Kamala Harris before she was vice president, or even, I don't think she was even elected. She was elected, but she hadn't quite actually taken the oath of office of senator yet. So, because I want to show people in our culture the other side. I want them to, as much as we celebrate Beyonce, the Queen Bee, and Meg Thee Stallion, and we should also celebrate the young Black female lawyer, who came up in Oakland. And you can say whatever you want about policies or what she did, what she didn't do, but that could easily be my niece. That could easily be my sister or my whoever. Like that, that. So celebrating, like, if you look at what this person went through, they're no different than you.
Right.
And so that's what, to get back to it, that's what kind of drew me to the Irv Gotti and Murder Inc. story. I've always been fascinated with Murder Inc. and that particular era of hip hop, the Murder Inc., the Rockefellers, the Bad Boys, the No Limits, this era where, again, these young Black entrepreneurs are taking this culture and really, elevating it to another space commercially and economically. So that was really, and I grew up on the music. I grew up on Ja Rule and Ashanti and all that stuff. So to me, it was a fun no-brainer. Like, I'm gonna make this doc and I'm gonna put it, as content on my website and see what, just get people's reactions. And so I did it. I made it in 2018. I just moved into my dorm room at NYU when I was a grad student. And the first thing I did was to pull up my computer and start, it maybe took me about a month to put together. I put it up and I published it in 2018, October 2018. And by the top of the year, 2019, it started to really go kind of viral and pick up views and pick up some steam, and people really responded positively to it. Which anybody who knows the internet knows that the internet can be very, very brutal.
They
right?
can, yes.
About people who are as controversial as Irv, right? But
right.
But people respond like, "Oh, I didn't know how much Irv had to do with DMX and Jay-Z. Oh, I didn't know he did that. I didn't know he started, because I did my research and to the best that I could and really put the pieces together and kind of tied the connected the dots. And it really got, picked up some steam. And in March of 2019, my mother passed away. I'm
sorry, first of all, we can't skate past that. We can't skate past it. I'm sorry, man.
Thank you, brother. I'm her only child, and she was my everything, right? So my whole world is kind of like coming down on me. I was in New York, she was in California, so I'm flying back to New York flying back home from school, and my whole world is just in disarray, as you can imagine, right? And so the day that I actually bury her is the same day that Irv Gotti reaches out to me, and he saw the doc, and he hits me up on Instagram and like, yo, I would want to talk to you and see if I can actually have you be a part of my real official doc. And it was like serendipity, man, and it just all came together.
Yeah, I saw his interview. He was talking about it on a radio station, and he said one of his people ended up catching it, and it was like, yo, you got to see what this dude did for you, man. Like, this is like really good. And he said once they sold it to him, he was like, oh, wow. That's what he said. He reached out to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was it like? So you've been putting in all this work for all these people. You've been helping people out on campaigns and stuff. So to me, it's like that one big thing that you do that kind of sets the pace for what you plan on doing going forward. So what was that like?
Oh man, it was surreal. It was already.
You were in college still too.
I'm still a grad student, so this is surreal to me. It's like this is a dream come true. I always dreamed of working with these guys. And I've always been a fan of Murder Inc. and John, and again that whole era, whole era. And so just for him to even acknowledge me, for him to even hit me or make he made a post on Instagram and just said how good of a job, just that alone was like, you could have just, I could have been done. I was good. But then for him to, further it and say, I want you to be a part of making this documentary, making my official documentary, that was again, like, and then, at first the conversation was just, I want you to be a part of it, maybe produce it, maybe, help the director. At the time, didn't have a director. And then, one day we're talking and he's just like, I want you to direct the documentary. Like,
oh, shucks.
I want you to direct it. And again, I'm still a grad student. And I've directed a lot of things before. Obviously when you're, making all these things, I'm directing it, but I've never made.
We're all directors.
Exactly. But I've never made the anything at the scale of this, and
right.
It took a while. It took a long time. We went through a couple of different partners, and eventually we landed at BET. But I've been building this thing out since 2019, and just grinding away, building the concept, building the story for it, and to see it all come together is a dream come true. But
so what was that process like with it being your first big project? Because like you said, we all, like a lot of us content creators, we record ourselves, we write it, we edit it up ourselves. Well, some of us edit up ourselves. We edit it ourselves. So it's like, but a lot of us don't get a chance to get to that big of an opportunity where like you got to create storyboards and have everything written out and put a script together.
Yeah. No, it was definitely a different process in the sense that, I'm used to doing projects and the buck stops with me.
Right.
I'm used to being like, okay, well, I feel like this is good enough. Great. And I tend to think that I have a pretty good sense of quality and how to make things, good and make them great. But, having to go through so many different layers and, you have to meet these standards. You have to cut it to this time. You have to have all these different things and these acts and all that. So it was like little nuanced things that when you're making a show for TV, it's way different than making something independently and putting it online or something that is more of the buck stops with you. With TV, you definitely have a boss. You definitely have someone who's watching. The boss has a boss has a boss has a boss.
Right.
But ultimately, what it all comes down to is the boss is the audience, right? And you're making something to make sure that they stay engaged, that they stay keeping up with the story, and they understand what's going on, and they're entertained. Ultimately, they're entertained, and also with me, what I want to add into, I want them to be also educated. I want them to walk away with some nuggets that they may not have had before they watch this content. So trying to bring all those things together was a huge learning a learning process with that particular process. But it was definitely all well worth it in the end, for sure.
So did BET come with any stipulations of what they wanted to see on there?
Well, like with any network, they're going to have, things that they want to keep on brand, right? BET is a very music is in their DNA. Like music is, so they were very big on like, let's make sure we're keeping it on, the music, let's make sure we're tracking what's happening with the music. And because it's so easy to go down the gossipy route. It's so easy to go down the he said, she said stuff that really they gave relative autonomy over how I told this story, but they definitely kept checking to make sure that we were checking in on the music, that we were checking in on, what the audience loved, which is that nostalgic classic hip hop era. And they, they were definitely right to do that, and it definitely came out all the better for it.
So what else do you have in the works? Because when did this air?
This, it aired August 9th on BET. It airs every week, every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's a 5-part docuseries.
Okay.
So episode 1 aired on August 9th, and it'll air and it's BET. So anybody who knows BET knows that you're gonna see it at least 1,000 times in a week. So don't worry about if you missed it the first time, you will see it again. But so it aired on it aired August 9th, the first episode, and it got, just based on the initial reaction from the fans and from the audience, I think it was a hit. As far as the metrics goes, I'm still waiting to see the actual numbers come in, but I know that we hit the top 3 trending topics in the US, and to me that was a big statement right there. And only thing that beat us, I think, was the UFC fight, and there was something else going. I forgot. I think it was like Dancing with the Stars or something like that. One of those shows. So it's great reaction so far.
That's good. Congratulations. My hat goes out. Really goes out to you. Just to know where you started from, and then to actually produce some content, and now you've been elevated to a whole different level.
No, thank you, brother. I really appreciate that. It's surreal. I'm still kind of sitting here trying to soak it all in. For the viewers, it aired yesterday, but today is the day after the review, so I'm just kind of sitting back and soaking in all the all the feedback that we're getting. It's been really really well received so far. Knock on wood.
No, but even like you said, at the end of the day, though, to have your show actually on BET, and then to see your name on, you technically say, like a big screen. That is something. That is saying that you put in some work, and that credits to how hard you work to get there.
No, listen, man. I grew up like every other little black boy in the 2000s. I grew up on 106 and Park, Rap City. Listen.
MTV.
I was going to marry free. I don't know how I was going to do it, but I just knew
you need to go get it.
I was going to marry. I don't know how at 12 years old I was going to marry, this grown woman. But I grew. But BET was my life. You come home from school or you get done with your homework and you sit down in front of the TV. You're watching your favorite videos. For the kids watching today, we didn't have YouTube. You had to see that Ja Rule video. You had to sit there and you had to wait.
You had to wait.
And see who was on the countdown. And that was that. But BET's, I think the thing that I love the most about working with BET and with what I took growing up is that BET really centered Black people's voices for me. You know, because again, this is before the internet was really what it is, when we had all these different spaces and Black Twitter and all things. BET really centered the idea that you could have Black people, folks, who look like you on camera, who are the center of attention, who are behind the scenes. I mean, shout out to Stephen Hill, who I also interviewed for this doc. But Stephen Hill, who ran and was the boss at BET back then. You know, you would see his name and he was like, well, I wonder what he does. And you do research and you see that, oh, but he's running this whole shit back here. He's the president of the company. You see Deborah Lee, she's running, and you see Black people, you know, doing stuff and doing things other than just rapping. And, you know, oh, I can be a host like AJ or Free. Oh, I can be a DJ like such and so. Oh, I can be a producer like Stephen Hill or a president of a company like Stephen Hill. Like, so I think BT did that for me, and it definitely helped to normalize the fact that, yeah, I can be a director. Sure, why not? Oh, yeah, I can be a, why? It really helped me to see myself. And I think that's the beauty and the fact that I get to work with them and call them partners today. I mean, it's like, you pinch me, I'm dreaming.
Yeah. So now what else is in the works? Because you have C-Suite Music, which is a whole different company in itself. Mm. So what's in the works for C-Suite Music?
So for C-Suite, you know, for anybody, if you go on our website, you'll see that what's really in our DNA is I think service. You know, and I think that the name could often be misleading. I kind of like that because it's C-Suite, like, well, music, record label, rapper still. But the you know, let me break it down a little bit. C-Suite, for those, you know, C-Suite is like corporate term of like, you know, chief executive officer or whatever, chief operating officer. So that they say, oh, you're in the C-suites, you know, and music to me is not just about drums and snares and horns. Music is culture for us. Music is life for Black folks, people in my community. It's everything. It's really from the church, from us being, you know, enslaved and us singing and that helping to get us through to the Black church and, you know, now the hip hop and everything that music has given us spiritually, culturally, economically. Music means so much more to me than just like a song, right? So what I'm saying with C-Suite and music, I'm basically reappropriating this thing of C-Suite and like top and, oh, you're the chief this. And I'm saying, you know, I'm reappropriating that and saying that our music, our culture is elevated. Our music is here at this, our culture is here. It's not lowbrow. It's not, you know, it's not this thing that just can be bought and sold and thrown away and disposed of. It is quality. It's and we're going to do everything to empower our people creatively, economically, politically, and otherwise. You know, so that was a long way to me getting back to the point. But
no, you good.
but what I'm, you know, the projects that I'm now looking at with C-Suite and I'm working on are things that are going to, you know, amplify. I'm currently working on a project, developing a project that is going to, I don't want to give it away, so I'm trying to find a way to say it. But basically, I'm going to amplify the voices of women in hip hop, that haven't been heard, right? I'm also, you know, I'm working on things around education and you know, building out content and another documentary around that, you know, so it's all in the works and it's forthcoming. But those are the things I want to do. Those are the things that I really want to lean into, because even with this doc, and as viewers will see going forward, as the story progresses, there's, you know, for those who don't know, just to give it some context, you know, Murder Inc. Was pretty much halted from their meteoric rise. You know, everyone who knows all the records and stuff on the radio, but they were, you know, ultimately they had this case brought against them from the federal government. And they were indicted because they were affiliated with, or they weren't even affiliated, they were friends with a certain individual, and they were accused by the federal government of tax stuff and ultimately money laundering and conspiracy to money launder, which they were ultimately acquitted of and found to be completely, you know, nothing well of the sort. But it gets back to this idea about Black folks and people coming from where we come from being scrutinized extra because of who we look like. You know, they're, you know, and during the trial that they had, there were individuals who were, you know, on the the prosecutor side, he was basically like, well, the name is Murder Inc. They wear these kind of clothes, they hang out with these kind of people, and therefore they must be criminals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these guys were tax-paying citizens. These guys were law-abiding, never really been in any trouble with any. Of course, they're young kids, they're rock stars, so they might not live life the way you want to, but at the end of the day, everything checked out, all their books checked out. But so why were they targeted? Why were they scrutinized? And this is in the early 2000s. This is during the time where we had in New York, and I think they still have them, the hip hop task force, where there was a unit in the NYPD that specifically targeted rappers, specifically was about looking at hip hop and scrutinizing hip hop.
Hashtag Bobby Smurder.
Yeah, like and you still see it happening today, right? So to me, a big part of this doc for me that I really care deeply about is touching on the criminal justice system and how we are. No matter how rich you are, no matter how famous you may be, if you're Black in America, you will always kind of be seen as other. You will always be seen as kind of well, I don't want to say always, but oftentimes we're looked at as being illegitimate or something.
Because you had Dr. Dre. I don't know if you remember the thing about Dr. Dre coming home. And this random guy Dr. Dre, he live in a $1 million mansion community.
Yeah.
The guy parked in front of his gate. And he asked the guy to move from in front of the gate. The guy got into an altercation with him. And so he said Dr. Dre went in and grabbed the gun. So the police came out and had Dr. Dre handcuffed, worth millions of dollars on his own property. Had him handcuffed outside. And the guy that was invading his property, he was just casually talking to the police.
See? You see? It's stuff like that, and I think that, our work ain't done, man. You hear stuff like that, it just makes you realize we got so much more work to do, and bringing these kind of things to light. So I'm happy that we were able to, I'm not happy that happened, to Irv and them, but I'm also happy that we were able to talk about it and really have a real serious conversation around why do these things happen in our community, and those are the kind of projects that I'm going to be focusing on and really leaning into going forward as a filmmaker.
Okay. So, all right, as we wind down, like what kind of, how can people find the show, first of all? Because we're going to highlight your show, because we still highlight everything else that you was doing within the community, because your actual work is great. And he has a ton of videos out there for y'all to go and check out. His filmmaking is phenomenal. But how can they find the show? You said it's on BET, but should it tell you what time again on BET?
Yeah, it's on every Tuesday at 9 p.m. On BET, and you also can watch you can stream, I believe, the replays on BET Plus, the app. It's an hour per episode of just pure hip hop inspiration, fun, and I couldn't be more proud to have directed and produced this doc.
Now, how can they find you and tell them more about what you're doing going forward, so people can locate you on social media and then check out your website too and your other content?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter at C-Suite My website is csweetmusic.com. Holla at me, man. I'm always available. I'm always open to listen.
The DM's open. He responded to my DM. His DM's are
open. we are open for business. All right, like we are open for business, and I always want to share any kind of wisdom or words of encouragement I can to not only my fellow creators and content creators, but also just the people. I think it's so important that we don't forget that who we do this for is for the people. We're doing it, service, like I said, is so entrenched in me that it's almost like, it's second nature. Like, so I'm always looking for ways I can serve my community and serve my people. So if anybody has any, any opportunities or things that, we can be helpful with, my company and I, let's have a conversation.
Now, you said words of encouragement. I do ask all my guests this. So if you can give a word of encouragement to everybody listening in.
Yeah. No, listen, believe in yourself. Like, believe in yourself, believe in, God or whatever you call your higher power. But ultimately, if I had to just say anything, is don't listen to anybody. Just to of course, you got to know who to listen to. There's certain people you got to listen to, and that will give you really good words of advice and stuff. But always listen to that thing inside of yourself. Like, don't believe what other people think about you. Don't, even if it's great, even if it's amazing, even if it's like you're the greatest thing of all time. Don't even believe that. Always believe what you feel in your heart. You know, if you feel like you need to improve on something that you're working on, and you need to improve some things about yourself, work on it. If people say that you're terrible and you're not worthy, don't listen to that either, because that's not true. You know, find that space within yourself where you can feel like you love yourself and you love and you believe in what you're doing so much that it doesn't matter what anyone says. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks. You know, obviously that can sound like an oxymoron when you're doing like stuff like content and you're doing things that you ultimately want to please and satisfy people, right? But when you're doing what you really believe in, I don't know if anybody, I don't know, folks out there know their scripture, but in scripture it says the ways of a man please the Lord, even his enemies will be at peace with them, right? Yeah. So even when you are doing the right thing by yourself, or you're doing the right thing by your people, good things will come. You always get a bad review. You always get someone who says you shouldn't be in this position, you shouldn't be doing this or that. But ultimately, when you're doing the right thing with purpose and with the right intention, you will be rewarded and you will be gratified. And I think that's important for people to keep in the back of their mind.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I see. Like we were talking about early on, you got to know your audience. So you got to know, who you want around you versus who you don't want around you. You always want people that's doing something greater than you to be within your circle, because they'll ultimately help boost you up and motivate you in some form of way or whatever it is. Know who your surroundings are and stay true to who you want to be, and have faith in all the works that you put in your energy in.
Absolutely.
So thank you again, brother. You can find me on ptgtv.online. Thank y'all for tuning in. Like I said, thank you again for being a guest on this show. Y'all go check out Murder Inc. every Tuesday at 9:00. And if you got BET Plus, y'all can watch it anytime. So y'all don't have no excuse. That is the beauty of technology now. We don't have to wait at the end of every week to try to, if they want to do a rerun. Because, we kind of old heads. We got to wait for reruns. No, you can watch it anytime. So go check out his brother project. Like, he's done some great, phenomenal work. And go to his website, because he does have a lot of content out there for you all to watch and see what he does. And then, maybe y'all might want to hire him someday, because I'm sure he'll take in any work that he can get. So
need that coin, man.
That's right.
Appreciate you, brother, and appreciate the work that you're doing. And I would love to be a guest, again soon. And just keep doing what you're doing. And I love following your journey and seeing where you're gonna take it next.
Appreciate that. So thank y'all for tuning in. Love you guys. Peace out.
Peace out. At the gas station when the time's cold. In the kitchen, hostile trying to flip it out the stove. Rocking fake J's, praying that nobody knows. Watch them take my dog away, it was way too hard to stay composed. Fight to see the light of day, all this blood on my clothes. I was tired every day, green light, it's time to go. I don't wanna live life fast or die too young.